Okay, we're ready to go. Good afternoon and welcome to the November 4th special meeting of council. City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish nations and their traditional territories upon which we gather with gratitude. Need an approval of the a mover and a seconder for the agenda. Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Patterson. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. I told you he'd be here right at the stroke. We never worry about Mark. All right. Before we get too far into this, I got something that I want to read, and it's actually pretty good. So this morning, of all times, we received a letter from the province of British Columbia, and it was good news. The province has provided the city with a very large grant, which will be deposited into our account any day now, they said. This grant was something that we didn't apply for or something that we knew was coming. It just, we got the letter and the money's on its way right behind it. We understand that every municipality is going to get this amount of, get money based on population. There's a formula. And they're saying that it's, we'll be receiving this grant and entitled the COVID-19 Safe Restart Grant for Local Governments, okay? And they gave us this long list of items that may be applicable, many of which are in this budget. So it would be kind of foolish for us to be going through the budget and talking about it if we're going to get the grant money. And so we'll talk about that in a second. But we're getting $2.68 million. Not bad, not bad at all. And that was based on our population in 2018. And since we don't know what it is, the CAO has sent off an email to the individual that sent us the letter saying, can we use it for this? Can we use it for that? Can, you know, like with what's applicable on it? For a couple of things, for example, water and sewer fund, there's about $500,000 that we think that would be applicable for, because it's to do with the COVID, we reduced revenues because of COVID-19. So that's one of it. So as a result, I'm proposing that we receive the staff presentations that we're going to get today. And then we can go through our larger expenses and that at our December 7th meeting, rather than, you know, negotiate or go back and forth on all this stuff and find out that we're going to get the money for it anyways. And I'm pretty excited about it. I thought, you know, I don't know who's going to pay all this money back, but you know. Anyways, so that was really good news. Unfortunately, it didn't happen until, well, I found out about 11:30 or 12 o'clock. No, it was after lunch. It was after lunch today. So from that point, I apologize that we didn't get back to you sooner and let you know, but we can keep going. We'll listen to the staff presentations. And then in my mind, I would just say, listen to it and we'll call it a day at that point. And then on December the 7th, we'll know what monies we'll be able to get from the grants, and then we can have the discussions if that's all right with everybody else. I think it's a pretty reasonable way to approach it. So staff presentations, Mr. Butterworth, would you like to start?
Thank you, Your Worship. So today we'll be discussing the amended budget for 2020 to 2024. There's quite a number of changes, so we'll just get right into it. This works. There we go. So our presentation overview today we'll go through what the purpose of the amended budget is for council and the public. This is a public presentation as well. All of our budget processes have to go through a public process. We'll look at each of the funds, 3 funds that we have, and look at our change requests, We'll look at some other information and considerations for council, our projected accumulated surplus, and then any questions or comments or deliberations that are necessary. And then we'll look at equipment reserve changes as well. So the amended budget purpose, why we're doing this is that the final budget was adopted by council in May. And since then, there's been many changes that are necessary, some through council resolutions, some through new projects that have come up, some through accounting changes and various other reasons. So we need to get that into a budget bylaw, and thus we're going through this process. So in this presentation, we're going to do things a little bit differently than we have in the past. Before, we would do it mainly by department. So now we're going to look at we're going to categorize the budget adjustments. There's quite a few budget adjustments that we have proposed. So we've got some that have come from council through resolutions and through the ERWS board that this council hasn't seen yet other than the ERWS board members. We have budget change requests from staff, which include transfers from one operating account to another or from one operating account to capital. Net effect is 0. Budget deferrals, there's quite a number of items that are being deferred from 2020 to 2021 or later. And some new budget requests and budget deletions. And then there's some budget spreadsheet adjustments as well. So the general revenue fund, we'll start with that. So adjustments arising from council resolutions. So we have a transfer of council contingency of $12,000 to special projects for commemorative banners. We have an adjustment of public works salaries. We have traffic signal maintenance. It's rail crossing charges that were outstanding from 2017. We have a change funding for pool feasibility. Parks, we have a number of items. We're moving we've applied for a grant for the pickleball courts and the Kinhut washrooms. And we're waiting at this point for that grant to see what kind of funding we're going to get from that grant. So those projects are all pushed out from 2020 to 2021, awaiting the grant. They will, once we get notification of the grant, then this will come back to council. And what else do we have on there? We have transfer to equipment reserve for sweeper truck renewal and a transfer from roads to drainage for Forsyth Avenue. So the total cost of these items from council previously approved changes are $204,000 increase in costs for 2020 and $93,500 for 2021. So those are the ones that have come from council already. If anybody has any questions on any of the items, I'm happy to stop and go through them rather than saving them all to the end. So this is,
Just thank you. Just a quick question. The washrooms, CP washrooms, $1,300,000. What washrooms are those?
this is the replacement of the Kinhut. It's actually an amenity building. It was expanded through the grant that we applied for to be an amended building. So it's the replacement of the Kinhut washroom, space for a concession, and space for storage, I believe. There's a number of things in that. I'm not exactly sure.
So that's being funded 73%?
Yes.
So that's not what's going to cost us, $1,300,000 then?
The cost on that is, just trying to find it here. Oh, I'm on the wrong page, sorry. So $1,274,000 is that's the increase of the cost of that. So I think there was $500,000 in the budget, so it'd be $1,774 would be the cost of that building.
So our share is 500?
Our share is under 500 when you take the
Under
grant
500.
out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then we have some budget transfer requests. The net effect of these are zero, so we're just, we're moving some money from council conferences and council meetings that weren't necessary into the special projects for the strategic planning session that's happening in a couple of weeks. And then the transfer from the fire department minor capital account, or from the capital account into the minor capital account. They did some training ground work that was budgeted under capital, but it was too small, so we need the funds in the minor capital for that same work. So it's just an accounting adjustment mainly. So we'll start with, we have some project deferrals, and so this is the minor capital or operating deferrals. So we're, of course, the 75th anniversary party didn't happen, so we're moving that out. Website design, moving that project out. The fire rescue truck, that project is not going to be completed until 2021. So this is the small pieces of equipment that would go on the truck. So we're moving that out. PCTC roof replacement, moving that out, and the water tower, which just went through council. I believe that project will be undertaken next year. And the asset management development, again, moving that one out to next year when there's more capacity.
Just for a second, Councillor Wilson has a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, actually, I think I'll wait to ask this question a bit later if I need to. Thank you.
All right. That's fine. Thanks.
Okay, these are the capital deferrals, and rather than going through each one, if there's anyone, we've got, I'll go through a few of them. So we've got the rescue truck, that just closed, the bids on that one. So there's going to be a report coming to council soon on that, but the actual purchase and completion of that wouldn't be until next year. The performance venue, of course, is we've kept some money in this year, but majority of the work's going to be done next year. Rath Trevor Trail, again, we've kept a little bit of money in this year, but again, moving that out. And then a whole host of other projects, as you can see there. So there's a reduction this year, our budget deferrals of 2.9 million, and then it basically moves into next year at a cost of 2.8 million. So.
We have a question from Councillor Frass.
Thank you. And through the mayor to Lucky Butterworth. You mentioned that the bids closed on the fire truck. Is that cost still accurate for the deferral to next year, or is it looking at a price increase?
I think they're still evaluating the bids and working out on that right now, because there's a range of different things you can put on the truck and stuff. So I think they're still looking at that right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see the memorial under capital here, Memorial Street.
It's,
If we,
It was supposed to be done this year, but it wasn't done.
no, it was scheduled for next year, was it not?
I think that I was moved out in the final budget, and that this year was going to be the design, and next year would be the construction.
right.
I believe that was already done in the final budget in May.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so some new budget requests and changes. PCTC operation building budget. It's always been a little high, so I've just reduced that down in this budget closer to what our actuals are for this building. Public Works training, this relates to a charge to the from Public Works to the fire department to cover their confined space training. That was not in the Public Works budget, so we've added that in. Pool feasibility, some preliminary assessments, 200,000 into the 2021 budget. Removed a couple projects. Paving Rafiki Walkway is being removed, as well as the a drainage project, Temple on Temple Street. And we've added in a small amount of money for a additional snowplow for one of our small tractors. And then this is some spreadsheet adjustments. As a result of all these changes, our investment income actually goes up. It's a formula in the spreadsheet. And so when we change our reserves, it actually increases how much cash we have. And so then the formula just automatically adjusts that. So I'm just showing that to you. The allocation for the PCTC roof, the city's percentage was not at the right percentage of our share of this building. So that's been adjusted. It increased our costs on that roof a little bit. And Retegno was actually in the budget in two places, under minor capital and under capital. So we're removing the one that was under the minor capital from the budget. And the facilities PCTC generator, it's the same thing as the roof. The city's allocation was incorrect, so it's been corrected, and that boosts up what that amount will be. So other cost considerations that aren't in this plan right now, the swimming pool project, other than the 200,000 that you just saw on the last slide, or a couple slides ago, PCC renovations, and along with 100% offsetting grant relating to the Boys and Girls Club. Several reports that are coming later in the agenda, the web map, the fiber optic, red cedar tree management, and urban forest strategy development. And the big one that's going to be put into the 2021 budget, just because there's not time to get in this amended budget, is they did a major overhaul of the capital plan under asset management. And so that will be have a big impact on our total capital over our 20 years when we get to the 2021 budget. A fairly substantial increase in the amount of capital that's required. So. And what our reserves look like right now, that's without these items here in it. So for the 5 years of this plan ending in 2024, we're good right now. We're $2 million at the end of 2024. It does go negative after that. This also is not including that grant monies that were just mentioned by the mayor at the start of the meeting.
If you could, Councillor O'Brien has a question for you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Mr. Butterworth. If we could just back up to the general revenue fund, if we could, Lucky here. You mentioned anyways that there's been a change in the capital asset management, capital required for the new asset management study that was recently completed. Could you expand on that a little bit more? You were suggesting that it's going to change greatly after this management was done, this study. Could you kind of clarify that, please? I'm not sure I follow.
Okay, so our current 20-year plan has 91.5 million in it for roads and drainage over the 20-year period. And the new plan, from asset management, is showing it at 110 million. So it's fairly substantial. We are going to have to, obviously, that's too big of a change for the city to absorb. We're going to have to figure out a way how we can make that work. But regardless of there is a fairly large increase in there. Not sure yet. We haven't plunked it into the next plan to see how it's all going to fit and what the reserves are going to look like. But I wanted to just draw that attention that's also coming. And I don't think it's going to be status quo on what our 20-year plan looks like. There's definitely increases that are necessary in there to catch up on. A lot of it is related to road maintenance and keeping the roads in proper shape according to asset management.
Follow up, if I may, Your Worship, through to Lucky. So basically, are these items that have been identified now that are absolutely essential that are going to happen in the 20-year plan that they absolutely have to? Or are they going to be coming to council for our approval and that, or is it where it's an infrastructure breakdown that calamity is going to happen if we don't fix it right away?
Staff, say we've got several months that staff are going to be working on that to try and get that into the plan and see what it looks like. Obviously, we can't come back with a minus $10 million or $15 million deficit over the 5-year period. So we're going to be working on that over the next 3 months, and the plan has just got finished. It's still actually not even quite finished yet. So we're still working on that. So it was just that I wanted to just draw that attention to make sure council was aware that this change is coming in the next budget process. Not sure if it's going to impact any decisions. As far as this amended budget is concerned, most of these changes in here are cost neutral. They aren't all, but most of them are as far as what's in here right now. But I just wanted to draw that attention because it is a big change that's coming, and I didn't want it just to be a big surprise in the spring. Okay, so we've, as I said, in the 5-year plan, we have to have a positive accumulated surplus, which we do. The other years are negative. Hopefully those will be, will not be negative as we get there through annual surpluses or grants that we receive. Generally, we know we're going to get some grants over the next 5 years, so that will probably take care of those negative amounts.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I bring this up every year to Lucky, so it looks like a negative situation here at the end of 10 years. But in fact, I've been around for 12 years, and we've always shown a really good end balance. So even though this looks negative, it never really happens. Somehow our finance department is able to make the figures look a lot more positive than what they show in a 10-year plan. Right, Lucky?
So
I
far, so good.
ask you this every year. Thanks.
Sorry, hit the wrong buttons here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just, a little sidebar, just saying, as things like this grant we received today, you can't anticipate that 10 years out. So I think it will always see the similar kind of trend.
Okay, so that's sort of the end of the general fund. We've still got the water and the sewer. I don't know if there's any more questions. I think there's one member of the public here, if they have any
Press.
questions. Press. So I can move on. Or if
Any other
council has
questions?
Council wants to talk about anything, we can move on otherwise.
Let's move forward.
Okay. So the water utility fund, I don't know if anybody recognizes where this is. Aerosmith Dam, very well. Someone's been there. So the water utility fund, get to my page here. So changes approved by council resolution. We've got a number of items, or most of these items are all related to the ERWS budget that was approved after the final budget was approved by the city. So those adjustments all have to be put into this budget from the ERWS board. So the first 2 and the last 6 are all ERWS, including the middle one. And then there's also a budget increase for Forsyth and for PIM that was approved by Council Resolution 20-122. Budget deferrals. Hearst is Avenue's carry forwards are moved out, as well as Moss, because those projects are moved out. So we've got Hearst being moved out. Moss, Kingsley is moved out to 2023 and 2024, as well as Lee. And McKinnon Street is moved out to 2026, so you don't actually see it in the 5-year plan here. And other changes, we have user fees. So this is the COVID effect right here, the first year. There was a lot less water used during the summer, particularly probably because there was less tourists here than normal. So it resulted in about a $409,000 decrease in our water revenues from what we anticipated. The decrease in those revenues then has led to a decrease in our investment income for that fund because the surpluses will be lower than we thought. And also the transfer to the carry forward reserve, this relates to a minor capital carry forward funding that was not in the budget, so it's being added. It's basically it was a budget error that was not in the water budget. And the service of supply, this is a budget formula correction relating to ERWS and how the formula was calculated. So the one thing here.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. Regarding Lucky, if I may, to Lucky, expenditure service of supply, you said this was an error due to delivery service in the ERWS of 14,900?
The way it is it's a formula that was in the service of supply saying, take this amount and subtract the ERWS amount. And the ERWS amount was hard-coded in there. So when the ERWS amount changed, the service to supply amount had to change, but it didn't. So this is just correcting a formula. So I've adjusted the formula so it's not going to happen again in the future. Just the way the formula, it's buried in a formula, you don't see it. So when that change happened with the ERWS board stuff, it should have changed the service of supply amount and it didn't. So I've adjusted the formula so it won't happen again in the future.
It's the formula itself, okay.
Yeah, it was just a formula, and you can't really catch it very easily because it's buried in the formula. So,
thank you.
Anyways, it was basically a spreadsheet error. So one thing I've done in here is the large decrease in the water fees. I'm assuming that next year we're going to get somewhat more back to normal. So I only took it out of the current year. And didn't do a large adjustment for next year. So I think we'll know a little more when we're doing the budget in the spring for 2021 if where COVID's taken us and whether we have to adjust that as well. I do believe that from what we can tell is that grant that we received, we can offset these losses, revenue losses from that grant. So even though we have a revenue loss at this point, the grant, because it just is so new, it's not in the budget yet, but we'll be able to put that into the budget to offset these losses, I believe. So,
Councillor Franz.
Through the mayor to Lucky Butterworth, I'm just wondering if you can explain these losses a little bit here. You mentioned about COVID-19 restrictions. What kind of restrictions and how do they contribute to these revenue decrease?
It wasn't restrictions, it was just reductions in water use. So because there was less tourists here than normal through the summer, I'm assuming like the resorts were actually shut down for, I think, March and April, where they had very few visitors and stuff because almost the whole province was shut down. So our tourism took a big hit. And I think even through the summer, restaurants weren't as busy and all, they take out only and all these other things that where they don't have people in there. And so there was a big reduction in the water usage and more in the commercial than the residential side. I didn't bring the stats with me, but I did have the stats on what that was. And so that's what's contributed to the big reduction in the water revenues that we normally would get.
Thank you.
So our water surpluses are healthy at this point. This is with the $400,000 loss. So if we add the grant in, it's even going to be healthier. And that's it for the water fund. If we have no questions, we'll just move on to the sanitary sewer. Couldn't get a picture of toilet or something, so. So there were no changes from council resolutions, so we're right into budget deferrals. So again, these are the same projects that were in the water and in the roads. Moss Avenue is moving out to 2021, and Hearst as well. So really, there's no net cost for those. They equalize each other. So the sewer fund, again, same issue as the water. The user fees are down. They're tied to the amount of water used. And since the amount of water used went down, then the sewer revenues goes down as well. And that reduction then led to a reduction in investment income, similar to like it did in the water fund. And again, these revenue losses are only showing in 2020. We haven't carried them forward to 2021. So the model, the water fund is barely legal at 2024 with $1,000 to the good, and negative in the other years. So we can pass this with a $1,000 accumulated surplus at the end of the 5 years. And that's it for sewer. We have one other item. So we already showed this earlier in the general fund. There was not enough money to cover this in the equipment reserve fund, the new truck. So we need an additional $77,000, which was approved by council resolution. Trucks on order should be here by the end of the year. So in the equipment reserve fund itself, we actually had to show the increase to the equipment purchase amount for the sweeper truck. So this is just the increase amount. It's not the total cost. And it's being funded by a transfer from the general fund accumulated surplus.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our Director of Finance. What's the percentage or how is it calculated that the equipment fund comes from the general fund? So is there a percentage aspect, or because it looks like that we're 77,100 short. So does that mean that we have nothing in our equipment fund at this point in time?
The equipment reserve is, it actually has quite a bit of money in it right now, but if we took the 77,000 to shortfall for this vehicle and used it, then another vehicle is going to be short. So the fund is supposed to be replenishing. So we charge out all of the vehicles we have, we charge them out to the jobs that they're working on, and revenues come back. It's just the cost of these sweeper trucks have gone up so much that we didn't inflate them in our model enough for how much they've gone up. So that's essentially what it is. There just wasn't enough in there to cover the cost of the new truck for how much they've gone up. So rather than make that fund be short, which it would end up being short, then we transfer the money or ask council to increase it and transfer the money from the general fund surplus. So that's where that came about. And
Certainly.
So does that mean that we need to change the model or inflate it due to increased costs of equipment?
Yeah.
Such as the sweeper truck?
Yeah, I think part of the issue with the equipment reserve that we need to look at is there hasn't been a lot of stability in the operations management area. It's been a revolving door of different people, and each person takes this on, and then it's usually they've got a lot of other things they have to deal with. And so this thing sort of sits in, it's not the top of their list to let's go look at the equipment reserve and get it updated. So it's been a challenge trying to keep that updated and keep the costs updated on that. What we generally do is when we get a new truck, so this new truck comes in at, I can't remember what the price is, say it's $350,000, I can't remember what it is. We'll put the new one in, we'll put it in there now at $350,000, and then we'll fund that over time to replace the $350,000. It is inflated as well by inflation at 2%. 2 or 3%. But these vehicles have been inflating by more than normal inflation, and that's where the problem has arisen on some of these vehicles and stuff. So what we need to do is spend some time looking at it and say, is it just some of the vehicles, or is it all the vehicles that are doing that are inflating by that amount? So
The CAO has a question. Or
Just
a
a comment,
comment.
if I may. I recall from this one coming forward that it was also because the purchase was delayed by several years. So it was anticipated that it would have been replaced, say 5 or 6 years ago, but we just kept the one that we had running for as long as we could. So I think it's a combination of those things, and that if you don't purchase it the year you expect, and then don't account for the inflation, and then don't look at the market, I think that combined, all of those things led to that particular issue.
Councillor Chandler and then Councillor Frass.
Thank you. Through your worship to Director of Finance, Lucky Butterworth. Lucky, I guess, is that this new asset management program, is that going to help with all these kind of things with, say, shortfalls or miscalculations potentially of, of these type of purchases long-term? Does that help that? Or I know that was a big piece of that, I thought, so.
I'm not sure with the equipment reserve whether it would make much difference in that respect. It may. With all the other assets, it's essentially, I'm not an expert on the asset management as much as the acting director of engineering is, but it's going to put our capital plan where when you put something in asset management, you have it there, it's going to be in there and you have to replace it in 20 years or 40 years or 80 years, depending on what the asset is. So it's going to be in our books. We're not going out 80 years currently in our budget. We're going out 20 years. And even then, it's not necessarily, it's currently, a lot of it's based on an old Coors report we had back in 2004 or something like that. And then updated by engineering as we go, but it doesn't have the whole life cycle of all of our assets, whereas in asset management, we'll have that life cycle. We'll have when we bought something, when it's supposed to be replaced, and condition assessments along the way, what kind of repairs you need to do. So it's going to help us greatly when we get the full asset management plan finished and the software to assist with that.
Councillor Frass.
Thank you. Yeah, through the mayor to Lucky Butterworth. I like the way that you guys do that for the planning for the vehicles for equipment reserve by charging them out for the job. I'm thinking if you're just maintaining at inflation rate, it seems to me like the best case scenario then is if nothing changes, if the costs don't go above inflation, then we just make the amount for replacing that vehicle. But often is the case that things get deferred different years out and costs go up. Has there been consideration of looking at that charge rate and adding on a portion for situations like that? And worst case scenario then would be that if the cost does only match inflation, that we have a little extra in the reserve for maybe a different vehicle that might be rather than having it come out of our expenditures, like out of the, doing a transfer to the reserves. Maybe already have it from another vehicle, perhaps. Have you guys, is there a consideration towards increasing that charge out rate for the vehicles?
We actually currently try and charge out slightly more than what we anticipate the costs are for a year. So we do try and build a little surplus in there each year. It's not a huge amount, but it is a slightly larger. So if a truck needed to be, if I calculate out what a vehicle, say a pickup needs to be charged out and we anticipate it needs to be charged at $6.75 an hour to pay for itself, we'll bump it to 7 or something. So we have a little bit of a surplus on all the vehicles, which I think helps account for why we don't come to council very often for these changes in the equipment reserve. Because the inflation, even though we are inflating things, the extra we're charging is making up some of that difference when there's higher than normal inflation. But for something of this magnitude, we just don't charge it out enough to make that up.
And then follow up, if I may, with the follow up then with that, do the vehicles does it go into a general reserve fund, or is the money earmarked only that vehicle earns being charged out for the replacement of that vehicle, or is it going to a general one for the entire fleet?
It all goes into one reserve, so we don't necessarily track it by vehicle. It's just that the replacement on this, or I can't remember what the numbers are, but it was supposed to be 270,000, say, and it was coming in at 350. So we could have pulled that out of the fund, but then you start, if you keep doing that, then your fund is going to get slowly depleted. So I thought it was best that we should actually come to council and get the money out of the general revenue fund for that cost increase that was unexpected. And again, part of it was because it wasn't replaced I think it's about 3 years overdue on the replacement of that, 3 or 4 years. So if it had been replaced 3 or 4 years ago, probably the cost differential would have been much closer, and it might even be able to be absorbed within that fund if it was closer. But that was such a big difference that I didn't think that we should be robbing that fund that much, because it could provide challenges in the future.
One more.
Last one then that comes to mind then, if I may, through the mayor. As you see a vehicle going over its, past those years when you plan to replace it and the cost going up, does that charge rate change? Or how often do you review how often you're charging that vehicle out?
We review their rates every year, and we change them every year based on what we use as a 3-year rolling average of the costs and repairs of that vehicle, how much gas it's used, what its repairs were, and versus how much we charged it out, so how many hours it's used. So sometimes if a vehicle, you may set a charge out rate and maybe the vehicle normally uses 1,500 hours a year. So you set your charge out rate on that, and then the next year it only charges out 1,000 hours. Well, your revenues are going to be way down from what you expect. Your costs will be down, but we're using a 3-year rolling average. So every year we're taking that 3-year rolling average and saying, how many hours over 3 years did it get used? The average per year is this amount. So we're not doing it annually, because then it could start going like this, really high rates, really low rates. But it doesn't always work out. You try your best to do using the 3 years, and that's sort of what we found is the best way to establish a rate without having it jump all around. But they still do jump around quite a bit on some of the big pieces of equipment, just because of how much it could be broken down for a period of time or something, and that really affects big charges and no revenues, right? So then in the end, it could be left short in that particular one. So,
Comment from the CAO?
Thank you. If I may, Your Worship, I just wanted to mention as well a couple of things. One of the items I recall discussing on this one is there's differences sometimes in spending the money up front or spending money on higher operating. And so when I recall reading some of the options that were presented, I think one of the items might have been closer to the budgeted amount, but would have cost more in the long run. Another thing that I know happens is the exchange rate with the US dollar, which who knows what will happen with that moving forward. One of the things that this council had asked staff to do or directed staff to do was look at our fleet. And so over the last 18 months, our mechanic has been doing an asset management like plan where he's looking at metrics like how often does something break down, or where's those thresholds where it makes more sense to actually replace vehicles. So over the next few years, we're hoping that we'll have a much more robust understanding of, where's that magic point of trading something in and sort of saving the money, I guess, from replacing too early. So that's something that the mechanic is working on. And it might be a good time now to say, we do have a new director of operations joining us on the 16th of November, who comes from the city of Vancouver. And I think we'll have some really great ideas on how to enhance and improve some of these things as well. So we're very much looking forward to her arrival. Her name is Belinda Woods. So we'll introduce council to her on Wednesday, the 18th.
That's good. Yeah, that and grants all in one day. Holy cow. All right. It says the end. Good presentation, Lucky. Thank you very much. I don't know how you keep it all in your head, but good work. All right. Mr. Moody. the talking head. No, you've.
It's
there you
on
go.
now. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to provide information on two reports. The first one, the web map replacement project that we're looking at doing in 2021. Previously, the web map that we have currently was acquired in 2015, and shortly thereafter in 2017, the company that ran that product decided to end of life the product, unfortunately, and is no longer supporting it. Fortunately, it was not an expensive endeavor at the time, but moving forward, we're looking at putting a new product in based on the Esri GIS platform. The actual product is called GeoCortex. And the whole premise of doing this is to increase the public process to include more spatial information for council to make decisions, as well as for the public. There are two sections of the web map, one being the public-facing web map and then the internal one for staff. The one that faces the public will allow the public to have more information, both spatially and for information on several aspects of how the city operates. More detailed information on our property information. There'll be back-end integration with our property system and our GIS as well. We're hoping to make this a fairly dynamic program so that when we update information in our GIS, it will filter through automatically instead of being, having several months of a delay through other processes. If there's any information that you would require, just interrupt me at any time.
Just one question, if I
Sure.
may.
Mhm.
Is the company that we're buying the new system, or we're proposing to buy the new system, the same company as we bought the last system from?
No, Your Worship, no.
Okay. Just because I think something that they only support for 2 years is virtually criminal in my mind. Pardon me? It doesn't matter. They still bought the whole company and they took their products with them. It's just, I have a problem with it anyways. Councilor Frass?
Thank you. Through the mayor, just a quick question. Is there any local companies able to provide this type of software?
We went out to a competitive process in 2019 to find a vendor to provide a web mapping product. And the vendor that we selected was Esri Canada. They have a field office in Victoria, and we're going to be dealing with Esri Canada. Esri being the world's largest GIS system. They own about 95% of the world market.
Is there any local companies that responded?
There were no local companies that responded, no.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Just to go over the relative cost of this project, we did defer it to the 2021 budget due to the costs. When we went through the competitive process, the best product that we could find was ESRI or Esri. We're estimating with their proposal information that the cost will be between $75,000 to $95,000 to have the product implemented. And we would start that implementation sometime possibly in the spring.
Councilor Greer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Moody, going along a little bit with what the mayor had said, is there any guarantee for this that they're going to last? Did they give you any guarantee, or did they just say this is the way it is today and we might not be here tomorrow? Did they give you any type of guarantee at all when you're spending that kind of money?
I guess there's no real guarantee in the market, but the GeoCortex product is the largest market share of third-party web mapping products in the province, and it's spread across the country as well. Esri being the world's largest GIS company, it has invested heavily with geocortex, and we don't see any reason that they'll pack up and leave.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. And to a couple of questions in regards with the rollout for 2021. How long a time period is it expected to go if we decide to move forward?
That will really depend on our workload for the GIS department. We're going to be hiring a new GIS staff person. We're hopefully going to have a decision on that on Friday. But just from past experience, it'll be several months of work. It will be done next year if we start in the springtime, yes.
And one follow-up or
Certainly.
comment, and that looking through our agenda and package and everything, the one that looked interesting to me was that the RCMP would be able to use the web map to support their investigations and would be able to kind of look at crime statistics per area.
We would be able to develop that for them, yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Just 1 second, Councillor O'Brien, but just a comment. This is one of the fund for the grant. We've asked them in the email if this would be applicable for that grant, which would be kind of nice if they said yes. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question to Mr. Moody here. The new mapping system and so forth, one of the comments in your analysis advised that it could be used by council at any time. So my point is would it be able to be live streamed into the forum? Would we be able to use this mapping system anyways to bring up mapping when we're talking about a development permit application or something like that? Would we be able to use this mapping system that like the public would use, only this would have the city information on it? Would we be able to bring it through our system here and watch it up on there?
You would be able to do that. The city information, the internal information is a little more, there's more confidential information in that.
Right.
So you would be able to use it in camera, but you would also be able to use it for public display as well when warranted.
As follow-up, Your Worship, yeah, thank you, Mr. Moody, because that would be a great asset to us anyways to try and, the current system is rather awkward and clumsy. I must say it's challenging to find it and so forth and for guys like me to read it. So the thing is so tiny. So the thing is that would be a major improvement for us in assisting us to make our decisions, as well as the public as well, to follow what we're looking at. We can all talk about an address that we've all driven by that afternoon, but it's a real advantage anyways to be able to have it up on the screen so that we can all be on the same page. So thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Okay.
Any other questions? Please, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm,
Next one.
okay. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Patterson?
Just a clarification. With these reports, will we not be looking at the recommendation and putting those forward to our next meeting due to the new information of the restart grant? Or are we taking the recommendations?
No,
today?
we will bring them. We're just taking it all as information today, and then we will bring it in and we'll be able to say at that point in time that they've said yes to this or they've said no, that it's applicable for it.
Thank you.
Okay, hopefully that's what we're doing. Yeah, we're keeping our fingers crossed that they'll be able to tell us that at that time. If not, we'll be right back to where we are right now. So, all right, Mr. Moody, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next report is the fiber optic services to city facilities. It's a fairly lengthy report, and I'm hoping you've all had a chance to have a bit of a read, but I'll just give you a recap. Previously, the City Hall data communications to the Public Works was on a radio link, point-to-point radio link, and in 2019, we had a lightning strike that directly hit that link and took it out completely.
I was here.
Fortunately, I wasn't on the roof at the time. We switched to an auxiliary internet based connection, which is much slower. And at the time, we were, just previous to the lightning strike, we were noticing degradation of signal strength due to vegetation growth and other factors that affect wireless communications. It should be noted that the wireless communications we had between the two facilities was an unmanaged band, which means that anyone else who has an unmanaged band communications link can interfere with your link. And in order to guarantee a point-to-point link managed, we would have to go through the CRTC and get regulation for that, which can cost an extreme large amount of money per month. So what we've done is we've looked at the Englishman River water system, which had a conduit placed alongside the water pipe, while it was the intention of a future data communications link through to the Springwood Reservoir from the water treatment plant. And we have existing underground conduit from City Hall here going up Craig over to Despard, and it goes right by the water treatment plant to the end of Despard. And what we're proposing through this report is to utilize that conduit and put a fiber optic cable that will link the Public Works building to the City Hall. It will also link the water treatment plant and the reservoir. It will allow us to do secure data communications between sites. It has a 25 to 40 year useful life and would be much more affordable at $125,000 than a point-to-point radio communications link, which would require some additional engineering studies as well as possible modifications to this building in order to put a tower high enough to get over the city and the ongoing vegetation growth that happens as time goes on. So what I'm asking council for is permission to put this into the 2021 budget and establish that data communications link. We've got a plethora of advantageous things that can just create a very positive work environment that will save some money and increase staff efficiencies. So we're looking at this as a real win for the city because we already have the conduit in the ground. And to pass this opportunity up would probably not be the best.
Okay. Councillor O'Brien?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Mr. Moody. Just a couple of questions, if I could, Mike. The in-ground system that's already there, I understand the fiber optic line running through the conduit and so forth, but will this allow the RWS building down in Public Works area, will it allow the SCADA system to be able to transfer information, say to here at the PCTC as well as at Springwood?
Yes, it would. Yeah.
Thank you.
It would get rid of the problematic radio connection we have up on the reservoir as well.
While we're on, if I may just follow, while we're on the radio, the RF series that's already out there, is there any way that we can link, like if I understand correctly, the parks system, the irrigation department, use an RF system anyways for their zone controllers and so forth in the parks and so forth, the irrigation controllers? I believe they may be RF now. Is there any chance that they could hook into this system as well? They'd have to probably go to a link because as I understand it now for controlling, like I'm suggesting when they get a message anyways that say that there's a line break on the Springwood irrigation at the baseball diamonds or something like that. I understand our department get a message on it, but I think it's RF, radio frequency.
Yeah.
Which has, as you mentioned, proven unreliable.
At times.
They only work when you don't need it, from what I'm told. So this could be somewhat useful for the Parks Department as well, I would hope.
It could, yeah. We could look at enhancing that by putting some point-to-point communication. It's very close to the water reservoir. So there'd be fiber optic termination at the reservoir, and then from the park, it's just a short distance. We could look at that as well to enhance that service, yeah.
That's fabulous. I'm really happy about that because, with the fact that it's all going underground, it's going to give us protection from those extreme weather events that we seem to be happening all the time.
That's
And
correct.
with that fiber optic
Yeah.
in the ground, I'm very impressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Frass.
Through the mayor to Mr. Moody. Just wondering with this conduit that's already laid in there, is this city-owned conduit? I know there's a mention here of the school district utilizing it for their own fiber optics.
It's our conduit, the one that's out here on Craig Street that goes up to Despard and over. That's our the city's conduit, and we have them in there. With this project, we would be looking at starting an RFP process in January so that we could find a selected vendor. Because the school district would have some downtime, we might possibly have to pull all their fiber out of the cable, out of the conduit in order to pull it back in later. Or if we're really fortunate, we'll be able to just snake our conduit through or our fiber through and leave their existing services alone. But I have talked to the school district, and there is the possibility that they might want to help us out with this project.
And if I may follow up there, and just kind of adding on to that then, what kind of agreements were in place for having their fiber optic cable in the conduit there? Is there, like you mentioned, they're okay and that you might be able to work something out, but is there, I don't know, these relationships go, do they rent the conduit from us to have their fiber optics?
I don't know. I would have to look back at agreements that I believe that fiber has been in there for at least 10 or 15 years. It may have been put in when this building was built. I'm not absolutely sure, but I can find out about that.
It's just kind of a high level curiosity out of it, more so that I want to know if we're not going to be like infringing on any kind of agreements, like if it's dedicated to them,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So thank you.
All right, moving right along.
I don't have a lot of more information. There is a lot here, and I don't want to sit here and bore you guys with all the details, but
Yeah.
if there are any more questions.
I don't see any more questions, so you're free to go.
Okay,
Thanks an awful lot, Mike.
thank you.
Mr. Martin, your turn in the seat.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council. There's two reports in front of you today, and I'll give a brief background on each one for your consideration. Western red cedar trees. So over the last 20 years, the Pacific Northwest has seen a spiral of decline in Western red cedar trees. This has been attributed to climate change and global warming and long, hot, dry, drought-stricken summers. And the city of Parksville has not been immune to this as well. We've seen losses of their Western red cedars greater than 50% of our existing canopy. The funding to deal with this situation has come from our operating funds, resulting in a negative impact to the rest of the urban forest. For instance, our tree service contract budget has increased year by year from 2018 of a budget of 28.5 with actuals of 43,000. 2019 budget was 53,000 with actuals of 74,000. Our 2020 budget was 73.5 and up to date at this time is 65,000. So the dying Western red cedars and coarse woody debris management has resulted in reducing the amount of available budget for the Parks Department to provide other tree management services, such as regular pruning cycles of street and park trees, planting of native and specimen trees, and proactive tree assessments. A regular proactive tree management program can reduce future tree-related costs such as removals or infrastructure conflicts, requests for service, and is of the utmost importance for best plant health care practices. Proactive tree management protects the city's valuable tree and landscape assets. Staff are requesting $50,000 a year over the next 3 years for a total of $150,000 to manage the Western red cedar and coarse woody debris issue that is present in our city green spaces. Staff would like to further align the allocated 2021 budget by moving excess contractor funds to salaries and wages, parts, materials, and supplies, and municipal equipment so a proactive tree management program can be initiated. A contact dollar figure of $30,000 left in the operating budget should be sufficient to deal with situations that do not include Western red cedar trees or trees that staff are unable to address. The total budget increase for 3 years would be $150,000.
Questions? Councilor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through Mr. Moody, or Mr. Martin, sorry. I guess I'm not familiar with all the Western red cedars in the city. Do we have a lot of them?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So is it worthwhile keeping them going if we're going to have continued climate change rather than maybe replant other varieties of trees?
So the idea behind what we want to do is managing the Western red cedars that are dying right now is taking all of our allocated budget in our contract services. It's eating up the lion's share of our budget. We're not able to go and do proactive management. We're not staying ahead of the game. We're not doing cyclical pruning to our street trees to eliminate future conflicts that are going to arise and set up our food. So the cedar trees are going to die. The Western red cedar trees are dying. What staff have been doing is slowly removing pieces that are dying, take the top off, a little later on, take another piece off, and then as the remainder of the bowl succumbs to the spiral of decline that they're in, we leave it as a wildlife tree or we remove it pending. And it's all basic safety related.
So do you think it's worthy of spending this kind of money to keep something that's dying?
Well, the object is not to keep something that's dying. This is to deal with the dying and the dead. We have to get them out of there and deal with it. So we have to drop them, we have to take them down, and we have to get the wood out of the areas where they are. So this isn't to keep them going to try to fight climate change. This is to deal with the issue that we've been dealt.
So you're gonna take them all down eventually and
Eventually.
replace them with something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor O'Brien, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Mr. Martin. I was quite shocked that apparently we haven't done some much proactive tree management plan for the last 5 years. I understand we have a piece of equipment in the yard, a tree chipper that hasn't even been utilized for 5 years. So that's really sad because we haven't really been taking care of the trees that we have. Is that correct?
Yes.
Proactively, right? Okay, so the thing is that I have a question. Okay, so the request today's for the $50,000, which I understand totally. I haven't, for budget purposes for the parks anyways, I have to ask a question regarding, and perhaps it's the CAO that maybe help me with this. In the summertime, we have a summertime employment program. Is it a student program or so forth? My question is that grant related? Is that grant paid for, or does that come out of our parks budget?
It's typically a green infrastructure grant from the federal government that municipalities and other employers put forward every spring, I do believe. And I'm not sure of what the criteria is on how it's based and how the granting is awarded. I do know that this year we did not receive the grant, if that's correct. So that's
Did the year before.
If I may, Your Worship, I believe we are still trying to get the grant. It was some bureaucratic error in that they were sending the information to a previous employee who doesn't work here anymore. So we're still working on that. We do usually get the grant every year, and the criteria is more on the kids that we hire as opposed to what they do. But they're not certified to deal with some of those aspects, and we typically have only had them support the park, the community park.
If I may ask a
Please,
follow-up.
please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the question is when we do get the grant, then it's a zero balance cost to the city. Is that correct?
If I may, yes, it typically covers the cost. I think some years it's we have to pay 25% of the salaries for the kids, but usually it's a full refund.
I would be interested to know what that 25% cost of the salaries are. Like that would total into that would eat a part of the parks budget, the 25%, because I understand that there's been 4 students. Is there not been
we have
6?
We have 6.
6 students. So I would be interested to know what that amount is. And, I'll be honest here, where I'm going with this is if we took that money anyways, that we're actually having to spend and actually give that to the Parks Department and eliminate even applying for the student grant program, I think it would be more advantageous. It would get more work. And I'm not trying to roast anybody here, but the thing is that from the employees, the student that are working in the summertime program, I see an awful lot of them. Actually, there's 2 in a golf cart. They're checking garbage cans, and they're. I'm saying that the production is not very high, the production, what happens in my observations, maybe there's more going on that happens when I'm not down there. And actually, members of the public have brought it to my attention, and the question, like they do everything, they definitely recognize our city staff, which are always busy as bees. But the thing is that they've asked me, what does this cost the city? Because, you know, and that's just it. If we could take that money, all I'm saying, and give it back to parks. So that's just an option I'm trying to throw out there.
CAO would like to make a comment.
Thank you. If I
Would have been
may,
surprised if you didn't.
if I may, Your Worship. A couple of things. So usually when the students are in the park, they are mostly focused on supporting the special events. So they do a lot of garbage maintenance and cleaning the washrooms very frequently, which I think is needed in non-COVID times. They also do a lot of weeding and pruning and tends to be on shift. So, sorry, this is really irritating. We try to have kids working evenings, weekends, and days. So it's like a three shift model. So there's 6 of them, as we mentioned, from May to September. They usually start May long weekend and then end on Labor Day. And I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't think it's a very high cost. We'll certainly provide that information for council before the end of the week. But they typically are mostly busy, just trying to keep up with kind of almost like a customer service aspect, working with the special event folks. I know myself, what I see them doing a lot of is washroom cleaning and garbage. And then they're there to help out, kind of eyes on the park. Like they'll help. We have a protocol for missing kids if that happens, which it does a lot down there. So they're really just there as an extra, almost extra support when the parks crew is not typically working, which is they don't usually work evenings and weekends. But we'll certainly get that info unless Lucky has it on the top of his head there.
Yeah, he's not looking like he does, so, okay.
That's correct on the CAO's comments. You know, they drag the sports fields. The litter is exponential in the summertime, as you can imagine, ongoing throughout the day from beachfront to the waterfront, right all the way up to the walkway, and they're kept fairly busy. Okay.
Councillor Chandler.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Mr. Martin. I had a question just in actually something that came up after Councillor O'Brien mentioned about the wood chipper. I guess the question is a lot of times I'll see if they're doing tree limbing underneath in the parks like Marks Park or some of the other locations, that we're hiring out different companies to do that for us. Are we moving away from that, or is that something that's a continuous need just simply because of the specialty of that tree trimming and so on?
Through your worship.
Please.
In regards to when it comes to tree falling and tree removals, WorkSafe BC has changed criteria on who can fall trees and who can't. And basically you have to be a certified professional faller, and of which we do not have, and many municipalities don't. So trees greater than a diameter of 8 inches at the height of breast, 1.4 meters or 1.2 meters above ground. If a tree is larger than 8 inches in diameter, we cannot address that tree. Hence why we have, a lot of times you'll see contractors dealing with this.
Councillor
Follow up, if I will,
Please.
through the mayor again to Mr. Martin. So with that being said, does that also apply to when they're dealing with trees, just the limbing, the limbing of say Marks Park and those kind of places? Is that a similar scenario just because it's a big a diameter? Is that why?
No, I think a lot of it has to do with manpower and allocation. We're hoping to change that and have a little bit of different direction. So one of the fundamental purposes of a municipal parks department, in my opinion, is a progressive urban forest management. We need to, from planting the tree, we need to train it when it's young, and we need to put our hands on it at 1 year, 3 years, 5, 7, and then we set it up for success, and we pick the right species at the right time, and that pruning then farther on down the road, we're not having to deal with some of the big infrastructure conflicts and some of the larger issues that we're now being presented with and that you'll hear about later.
Councillor Frass.
Just wanted to make a comment just in regarding to the student summer program there. I know we're not debating the value of them at this point, but if we're going to be looking at that cost coming towards us, just want to keep in mind that it's not just about the value that we get out of cheap student labors. It's also about providing opportunities to young ones that are in youth that are building up their resumes and getting some experience, especially in our community above minimum wage jobs. So I do think there's that kind of value that needs to be recognized. And the community should know that too when they're seeing them. If they think they're just kind of looking at garbage cans, there's a lot more value that goes into it to our youth than just what we get out of them.
Thank you. All right, moving right along.
Thank you very much. Next in front of you is an urban forest strategy report. So an urban forest strategy, or UFS, will provide the framework for the City of Parksville staff, residents, and the development community to achieve target canopy goals. Canopy cover is an effective high-level indicator for all of the human health, ecosystem services, economic, aesthetic values that trees generate for our cities. Many municipalities are realizing the benefits and the challenges of managing an urban forest and have undertaken formalized management plans by way of an urban forest strategy. The general purpose behind a UFS is to create a diverse, resilient, and beautiful urban forest by guiding our collective efforts to protect, plant, and manage trees on public and private lands across the city. Typical goals of a UFS may include protect the urban forest during development, plant trees to grow the urban forest, manage trees for health and safety, engage citizens in the urban forest, monitor the status and condition of the urban forest. As I'm sure you're aware, it takes decades and much care for a young tree to reach maturity. Mature trees deliver benefits to the community that cannot be replaced easily or quickly. By protecting Parksville's existing trees, a steady flow of benefits is maintained, canopy decline is prevented, and successful growing sites are protected for both existing and future trees. The creation of a complete UFS from issuance of an RFP to council endorsement of the document could potentially be completed in 8 to 10, perhaps 12 months, depending on the scope and desired outcomes of the document. The resulting urban forest strategy will provide a vision, goals, and a framework to manage the City of Parksville's urban forest for the next 15 to 20 years. Urban forest strategies vary in scope pending the level of complexity of analysis, amount of engagement undertaken with staff, residents, and other stakeholders. The level of graphics of the document and the production value can also have an impact on the level of scope and associated costs. In the 2020 approved budget, there is $50,000 allocated to a wetlands configuration study. Staff believe that we have enough information in regards to Parksville's wetlands to undertake the recommendations from the 2019 Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan, that this budget could be reallocated towards the creation of a UFS. This study would look specifically at the tree species and the health of our overall forested area. Staff are recommending a scope of $80,000 with the reallocation of $50,000 from the wetlands budget towards the UFS. This would leave a shortfall of $30,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Mr. Martin. My question is, I guess, in the process here, I think it's an amazing idea. It's great. It's long overdue, and I think it's. I really appreciate you bringing it to our attention. The thing that I find is interesting is that this new study could actually, I see in the phase one of the background research and so forth, it would also include like work with our staff, our staff being interviewed as well. And in that, I'm thinking like in the form of our planning staff, because we have a lot of inconsistencies in our permit applications for the developments that have happened in the city. And this is not just in past, it's happening still now currently, where we see one development go through and it has a very robust revegetation plan anyways, and it's very landscaping, and they turn out fantastic. But then others, all of a sudden we drive by after it was, typically a forested area that had gone up for development, which is the way it goes. But there's been no effort to really plant to try and recover some of that canopy that was lost. And so I'm hoping that maybe with an urban forest strategy, it would help our planning department to maybe put a little more emphasis on that what is recommended to maintain our urban forest, it would be covered in the development permit application. So I think the planning department could certainly use this as a tool anyways to help them to create the city that has, as you said, 88% of the citizens have said that they value the trees. So as long as the staff are consulted on this, I think it'd be a real asset to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through your worship.
Please.
If I may, your worship, sorry, can I please ask a question? I just
Were
want
you
to,
elected?
no, I need a clarification question if I may.
Of course.
Is the intent of this, though, Guy, for just the city-owned, like public spaces? Or is it also going to cover private land?
So one of the tools that they use is an application called LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging. So this is a satellite-based system that's able to give us an overview of our forest canopy density as well as height, biomass estimates. They can even break it down to which is an oak tree, which is a western red cedar, which we don't have many of. Grand fir, whatever. So it can actually give us species of tree, size of canopy, height of tree, as well as the vegetation coverage underground. They are on the forest floor. This would be citywide. They also do ground toothing as well. So they come and they put boots to the ground, and they go and they really get down into the nitty gritty and the nuts and bolts of it. In regards to engagement, it would be robust engagement where all departments would be involved in the creation of this document and through the formation when they do the background and research, as well as the community, as well as the development. They can come to advisory panels they're more than willing to do. I've been involved in a couple creations of these documents. It's a robust guiding principle that will provide recommendations on policy, procedure, potential bylaws, of course, at council's direction on what they're willing to tackle and take on at that time. So whether it's private spaces or it's the development community or it's just parks and natural areas, city-owned lands.
Thank you.
No further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another good report. Wow, you guys did a great job today. Thank you. All right, we're moving right along. And the next title says adjournment. So take a motion to adjourn. Pardon me? Public, there is. No, I'm sorry. I should have said that. We didn't receive any and there's nobody here unless the gentleman from the press would like to ask questions. Thank you. All right, Councillor Greer, you moved it. Second by Councillor Chandler. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. Interesting afternoon.